go. I told you it finishes suddenly. we always get caught bopping away. Good evening, everybody. Welcome along to another evening of Blethering. Apologies, we missed you last week. I was on a tasting event with Andrew Smith at Aberdeen Science Centre where we got to geek out on science, funnily enough, at the Science Centre, but science specifically about whiskey. So that was great fun. And I can't remember why Kat wasn't there. She was doing something, but she couldn't make it. And our guest, who was meant to be Scott Adamson from Tomatin, unfortunately couldn't make it. He's moving house. So he didn't have Wi-Fi. He didn't know where his laptop was and all that kind of joys that come with moving house. So we will get him back in to have a blether with us a little bit later on. But we're here tonight, and you'll notice no Kat. We have... this is the third week in a row that you guys at home are missing your cat crazy. So we've replaced her for one night with Loopy Lou, Louise.
You can't replace Cat.
No,
there's
we
no
can't.
Replacement for Cat. Standing.
Standing. Warming you up for future events. So guys, you may remember Louise from about a month ago, 6 weeks ago or something, where we had you in the spotlight. So Kat, Louise, I'm going to call you Kat all night. I just know it. Louise is stepping in, and if you did watch that, you will know that she is equally as spontaneous with the tongue that Kat is. We're going to have some fun, I'm sure.
I do think it's quite impressive that we're only 6 weeks into the job at Inverurie Whiskey Shop, and I've already got Loopy Lou as a nickname. So
yeah, I mean, I was trying because I said Cat's craziness, and I am a sucker for alliteration. So, I mean, it could have been Louise the Lunatic or something, but I think Loopy Lou sounded a little bit fun. It wasn't too down, right. Yeah. So good evening, everybody at home. Dave Fagerson, who was at our science night last week. Hopefully you've absorbed all that absolute geekery that Andrew threw at you, Dave. He's enjoying a Little Brown Dog extra value range, which of course we all know is the Macallan M release that they had out last year. Dutch Jura, good evening. Good to see you on. Great to speak to you last week, actually. On the phone. It was great to catch up. So he has got the Campbelltown Connection from North Star in his glass. Not one I've tried, but being North Star, it's going to be banging, I'm sure. Dave Muir is on the Glen Scotia Victoriana tonight. It's just a banging core range, Dram Glen Scotia, isn't it? Victoriana. Gotta love it. And Willis is on. He's on Facebook enjoying a James Eady Manickmore 11-year-old. Perfect. Great stuff. Again, not one I've tried, but Manickmore kind of got a bad rep for a little bit because it was the whiskey that was used for the Loch Dhu, if I remember right, when they just hammered it full of like really active port casks. And it was a terrible whiskey, but it's kind of gained a little bit of cult following, and people are hunting for it now. And but Manickmore kind of got a bad rep because I'm sure it was that when it used it. But get it into a kind of first fill bourbon or maybe a refill sherry, and it's such a good spirit. Anyway, hope you're enjoying that, Wills. What's in your glass, Louise? What are you enjoying tonight?
I'm actually going for Ben Nevis 10.
Ben Nevis 10, which is one of your top drams, isn't it? It's one of your favorite kind of core range.
Absolutely one of my favorites of all time. We had so many very interesting people in the shop today who, like, all of them asked what my favorite dram was. We always do, aye. But they all asked what my favorite dram was, and I feel like I've said Ben Nevis 10 so much today that I then had to have it. I try to save it for special occasions, so this Blether is a special occasion.
Thursday night, Blether. It's special. I think we have a Ben Nevis coming in through Lady of the Glen this weekend, actually. They're launching. So we will have a single cask Ben Nevis in the shop very soon. I've gone old school. I've gone kind of a little testament to our guest tonight, I think. We'll go back to Glendronach, 12-year-old. One of an older, 2020 bottling. So that's in my glass. I'll start off on the core range, and then we'll see what we dabble in a little bit later on. But without further ado, let's invite Ali on and bring him to the stage. There we go. Good evening, Ali. How are you?
Hey guys, how are you doing?
All the better for seeing you.
Nice one. Nice to see you both. Thanks for having me on.
When we logged on, we were literally on the green room about two minutes before you. And normally I like to be on about 20 past. I was on at 25 past, and I was like, "No, Ali." I'm like, "Louise, is Ali kind of been and gone because I wasn't here to let him in?" She's like, "No." so thank you for coming along.
No, of course. Sorry, I was a bit late. Apologies.
Not at all. We are, you can be as late as you want. We just love that guys like yourself give up your time on a Thursday night to come and speak to us and speak to the guys at home as well. It's very much appreciated.
No, of course, a pleasure. It's great chatting to you guys, and I haven't managed to stop in by the shop for a wee while now, so hopefully I'll stop by quite soon.
Yeah, because you live in Aberdeenshire, don't you? You're up.
Yeah, my wife and I moved up this way just under 2 years ago. Moved up to Mary Cooter, so a bit more country lifestyle than compared to what Glasgow was before. But really nice part of the world and enjoying life up here. Right?
Awesome. How long were you living there before you realised it wasn't Mary Coulter?
I think we'd worked out just before we moved in, so it wasn't gonna fly along with the locals.
Good stuff. So first question. What's in your glass? Have you having a drink tonight?
So I just poured one. It was the latest release that we had from Turntable. I just had an open bottle, so it's the Unplugged that we just launched just the start of this month. So a really cool one, just an awesome sort of everyday kind of dram. We wanted to release something that was sitting just around or just beneath that £40 mark and make the brand a little more accessible and get more and more people tasting Turntable. So it's still like it's 85% malt, 15% grain, and mainly sort of Speyside malts, first fill bourbon, a little second fill bourbon, and the grain whiskies are refill sherry, and then there's just a touch of peat, just sort of between 1% and 2% peat in there as well. So a really good everyday one.
Nice. I love that everyone has an everyday dram, and it's normally something that's affordable, but it's not a shrink of it. It's 46%, I assume.
Yeah, 46.
Yes, it's got a beast. I noticed. I was just scanning Louise's collection behind you there. She's got a wee turntable in the background as well. Nice to be on brand. I am ashamed to say I was raking for my bottle. I was out in the garage. I know I've got turntable somewhere, but couldn't find it. So I apologize profusely for that. So I'm going to do it.
I'm delighted to hear if you finished it, mate. That's
it. Maybe it is. It maybe is. But I was going to have a nod to your past with the Glendronach, maybe a Benriach, and maybe a Glenallachie as well. So.
Awesome.
And guys at home, if you've got any questions for Ali, please fire it into the chat, and because we rely on you guys to guide us in what we're going to talk about, because otherwise we just talk about what's in our head, and that's a scary place to be. So Ali, tell the guys at home just a little bit about yourself and kind of where you come from a whiskey background.
Yeah, sure. So I started in the whiskey industry just out of university. So my brother and I, Gordon and I, we kind of grew up in the whiskey world a little, and that our dad, Graham, worked in the industry for over 30 years, or 35 years, and he was at Inverhouse for most of his career. But when I finished up university, I went to work at the Benriach distillery company, which at the time was Benriach and Glendronach. And then whilst I was there was also the acquisition of Glenglassaugh distilleries. So I was there for about 6 years or so, and then the company was sold to Brown-Forman in 2015. And I stayed there for about a year through the takeover, but in the background after that, one of the previous owners of the Benriach Distillery Company, Billy Walker, who I'm sure some of you guys will know very well, he was pulling together a small team to try and do a deal and acquire Glenallachie Distillery from Pernod Ricard. So once that acquisition was completed, I went across with Billy to Glenallachie and was there for about 3 years or so. So it was, in total, I worked with Billy for just over 9 years, almost 10 years. And yeah, he was an amazing guy to work closely with and learn from. Very, very privileged that way. And my brother Gordon, during the time, he was with Inverhouse for best part of 10 years and also spent some time with Douglas Lane. But we'd never worked together before. It's something we always wanted to do. We wanted to start our own project. And when we started to get a bit more serious about that and think really closely about what that's going to look like, we almost agreed that we had this shared frustration in a way that in the whiskey world today, there seems to be very much a feeling or perception that single malts are the quality and blended whiskies are the volume. And we really wanted to do something to try to challenge that. We thought with blending, there's so much opportunity for creativity and flavor combination. And I think it's sometimes forgotten, actually the blended whiskey category is really, when it first started, it wasn't all about volume and price. It was about quality, consistency, creativity, and really the success of blended whiskey drove the success of the overall Scotch whiskey category. And I think that's sometimes been a little forgotten. And we've seen this amazing growth of single malts in the last 20 or 30 years. And there's no doubt that's driven by quality, amazing quality single malts. But we also felt that whiskey enthusiasts today, they could really relate to the category because they love the connection that it offers. People love to know where the distillery is, what the history is, who's making the whiskey, what cask it's been matured in, and really have that sort of sense of connection. So I guess with Turntable, our feeling was, in a way, could we try to combine what we see as the best of the two categories? Could we take the opportunity for creativity and flavor combination, but combine it with the care to detail, the transparency, the storytelling of single malt? So basically, we landed on Turntable Spirits, which we launched 2 years ago, which is a small blending house, everything small batch blended whiskey, natural colour, unchill filtered, at least 46%. And we try to be very, very transparent. So actually go into detail about what the breakdown of the blend is, what percentage, what distillery, what cask type, what flavour that brings to the overall blend. So just trying to break down those barriers between the two categories. And it's been a bit of a roller coaster so far.
I can imagine just taking that step out of, I suppose, a comfort of a bigger name. And diving into yourselves, it's quite a leap. You probably did it at a time when a lot of people were coming into whiskey as independents, but you kind of made that distinction by becoming a blender rather than an independent bottler, which is two very different things, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we operate in quite a similar style to that of an independent bottler, but as you say, there's some key differences. I think independent bottling might have been the slightly more sensible business choice and safer route for us to take, but I think there was enough players in the category by the time we were starting, and we didn't really feel we could bring anything fresh and exciting to the category. And I think with the idea of almost trying to change that perception of blended whiskey in some way really gave us energy and motivation, and wanted, I don't know, a real sense of purpose and something to try and achieve and do things differently. But in terms of how we operate, there's definitely similarities in that we both would source casks of whiskey from different distilleries around the industry. A lot of independent bottlers would also put a very strong focus on wood management. So we would source very good quality empty casks from the US for various types of virgin oak, bourbon barrels, chinkapin, ex-rye casks, or from bodegas in Spain for sherry casks, wineries in Europe for wine casks, and do a lot of re-racking, so taking the whiskey out of the original cask, putting it into good quality wood that we've sourced, and try to develop the whiskey to a point that we're really proud of before we start thinking about blending and bottling. And that can all be quite similar to an independent bottler. I guess the real point of difference for us is like when we're pulling together small batches of blended whiskey, our sort of minimum aim and ambition is for the final blend to be more interesting and flavoursome than any one of the individual component casks. So that's really what we're trying to do.
Cool. I think Kat has got Louise's tongue. She hasn't said anything yet since we.
I'm just listening intently. Do you know what I was actually thinking? I was thinking about how there's so many like projects and thought experiments about how many decisions are made across the distillation process. So like what kind of barley you're using, what kind of yeast you're using, all that sort of stuff. I don't know how much like external research or like thought experiments have gone into the idea of blending. So like, because that's a whole other beast in and of itself. Like thinking you've got to make all these decisions, you've got to make all these choices to make your own.
You're probably right though on the science and research side of things. It's probably very much on the distilling side of things, whereas the blending, I think there's becoming a lot more. But I mean, for me, like my experience really of working with Billy for those years is it is very much sensory. It's he's very old school on that, and it's a different way of working, I suppose. But totally. I mean, there's like a lot of the distilleries who we're sourcing from and working with, like the quality of spirit being produced is outstanding. And I found it interesting actually, even at the start of the discussion there, that Manachmore came up, and sometimes that can quite easily be dismissed as a sort of single malt or a component that we would often use in blends. And it's sometimes like the lesser names are, because they're used predominantly for blending, would be seen as inferior products to those brands that are recognized as single malts. And the truth is, it's just not necessarily the case at all. It just depends on the strategy of the current ownership. So you think even with distilleries that I was working with previously, the likes of Benriach and Glenallachie in particular, both took ownership changes to showcase the whiskey as a single malt brand, like under Pernod Ricard's ownership, until Billy and Wayne and Jeff acquired the distillery in 2004. Nobody would really have seen Benriach. There was the odd bottling, but very, very few. And the same with Glenallachie, much more recently in 2016, 2017. Prior to that, you've seen the odd independent bottling, but really not much at all. And although the change of ownership, Billy's done some fantastic things with the distillation and slowed things down and a very long fermentation time. The quality of the spirit being produced prior to that ownership change was still excellent, as you can see in the cast that they're releasing today. So I don't know. I always think with what we're doing as well, and we're giving the details of the components, it's important to talk about some of these lesser known distilleries, especially the ones owned by Diageo and Pernod Ricard and things, because some of the quality of spirit being produced is just so good.
Yeah. It's, you mentioned Glenallachie there. It's probably one of the massive success stories of the last 7, 8, we'll say 10 years. But we're only now seeing Billy's spirit come through, aren't we? What he's like, what has been fully matured under his stewardship, we're seeing that kind of come through as
exactly. And there's so much more to come there as well. Like, I mean, I think you're particularly seeing it right now on the peated, on the Meikle Tour. But there's still loads to come with the Glenallachie, and when that 12-year-old becomes spirit matured under the current ownership will be really interesting and things as well. Yeah.
You're kind of covering like such a wide variety of being a blender, because and this is, I'll jump in with this just now because I was going to wait until later, but you've been a blender under I don't want to say shadow, but Billy Walker's going to be the figurehead.
Delighted, happily under the shadows, no problem.
But he gets the pictures in the paper. He gets the showcase, the name of the bottle, and deservedly so. So you've been there at Benriach and Glendronach, blending kind of core ranges, a little bit of experimenting, but predominantly kind of focused on a 10, a 12, a 16, and the core ranges, and finding that consistency in blending. Then you go to Glenallachie, and it's all about recreating or creating a brand new core range, or what will become a core range. And then you've now gone into, I've got my own ideas, and I'm now going to do something. How do you adjust the mindset from being, we need to keep this consistent, we're stewards, we're kind of guardians of a spirit, to creating a new core range, and then saying, you know what, how do I pick a flavor out of the sky and I think, what do I need to do to create that? Or does it work like that? How do you get that?
No. It's a good question. I was just trying to get my head around it. It's been, I suppose there is different parts of that journey that I was just trying to think about at the beginning. Like Benriach was always very experimental, which was interesting in itself, and that you had the triple distilled, the peated, the unpeated, the different wood finishes, the classic core range, the single cast. There was so many different directions, and at times it probably became quite confusing, even when you were working there, let alone for everybody. But I think that was almost, in a way, the model of Benriach and what set it apart. The slight frustration I had on that sometimes was that I felt that the classic Speyside range of Benriach was a little overlooked, the likes of the 16 and the 20 and stuff, and I thought they were just like stunning whiskies, and they're sometimes a little overlooked. Whereas Glendronach, like, it was probably more what you're talking about in terms of that stewardship. Like, there was definitely ways to take the brand forward, and Billy did a phenomenal job with the sherry cask, but the real identity of the brand was really that oily, heavy, full-bodied style of spirit, and the big sherry casks, and like, obviously the combination between Oloroso and PX, but compared to other brands, I would say the Oloroso was probably a little more prevalent than the PX, which was maybe different to some other brands focusing on sherry casks or sherry matured whiskey. So that was probably more like stewardship, consistency, and just trying to gradually keep focusing on the quality and take the brand forward. Glenallachie, as you say, was an interesting one, and that it was like a blank canvas. You could there was no real opinion on what Glenallachie was until that ownership changed. So there was this opportunity to create a core range and try and take the brand, or put an identity on the brand and take it in a new direction. And like most of the stock that was acquired with the takeover, I mean, there was a great stock acquired, but for the most part, it was in really good quality bourbon casks. But I think Billy's sort of feeling at the start was trying just that, because it also had that kind of heavier, oilier style of spirit, and there was an opportunity to move more into the sherry style and that kind of Glendronach direction. But I think that was the vision for the core range, but then still be experimental with the limited releases. So, I mean, the re-rack, the program at Glenallachie was really sizable and still is, but it was kind of a vision in the early years of sort of Pedro Jimenez sherry, Oloroso sherry, and Virgin Oak. And I mean, the part of that, even on the Virgin Oak, was to try to work quite quickly at the beginning and get a really active cask and get the whiskies to a point that you could get out to the market. fairly quickly. And I mean, just done a phenomenal job on Glenallachie, but I still think the starting point of the spirit was really good. And then through Billy's wood management, you could develop it quite well. And then with Turntable, part of what Gordon and I really wanted to focus on in terms of core range was to almost celebrate the diversity that blending allows you in a way, compared to one of us working for a single malt distillery, which both of us had done for a number of years, to really have just a clear, diverse core range style. So with 3 whiskies, really, the Paradise Funk, Bittersweet Symphony, and Smoke and Riff. And the idea was Paradise Funk would be that kind of light, fruity, slightly spicy, but very accessible style of whiskey with good complexity. So a lot of Speyside malts in first and second fill, bourbon, virgin oak, some chinkapin, and then old grain whiskies. And again, some in American oak, some in ex-cognac casks. And then the Bittersweet Symphony, the idea was that sort of more full body, heavier sherry style matured whiskey. And again, from experience of Glendronach and Glenallachie, trying to work with slightly heavier styles of spirit, so the likes of Craigellachie, Balmenic, Tianinic. I don't know, it was always, I think we both had a little bit of a feeling that sometimes with sherry matured whiskey, it's been a little, in our opinion, a little over sherried in recent years, that sometimes you can have quite thin spirit in very sweet Pedro Jimenez casks, and the sherry can really dominate the whiskey. So we wanted to create something quite well balanced on that and focus on the combination of Oloroso and PX, but also those heavier, oilier styles of spirit that can stand up well to the sherry casks. And then the idea was to have a peated whiskey in the core range as well. Again, we both love peated whiskey, but not always a fan of when it becomes like a competition who can make the most peated whiskey or the thing. So just really trying to focus on balance for that one. So have that kick of sort of campfire smoke, but then the sweetness of some of the Pedro Jimenez sherry casks, and really focus on sort of smoke meets sherry and not overwhelming. So within these 3 whiskies, the idea was that there would always be a whiskey for everyone, which was quite important to us. But even on the consistency of that is kind of interesting as well, compared to other blenders and other blending houses. I would say like the likes of Johnny Walker, Chivas Regal, Ballantine's, and things like that. The consistency is just outstanding, like really, really phenomenal. Whereas the way we're blending and doing small batch blends, I would almost look at us as a little more like a single malt brand, in terms of if you've looked at the likes of a Glenallachie 12 years old type thing, if you tried it 3 years ago and tried it now, you know it's the same distillery and probably know it's the flagship whiskey, but maybe not exactly the same. And that's how we would view our core range. Like, there are nuances from batch to batch, and we almost quite enjoy that. I would say, like, we really want to blend the absolute best version of that style of whiskey at any given time. And like a lot of the consistency side comes down to long-term stock planning as well. And I think we're in a really good stock position for planning ahead on that. But what we're doing compared to the likes of your Ballantine's and Johnny Walker and things is a little different. That our absolute consistency is not.
Is it easier for them given the scale, and it's a lot easier getting consistency with quantity? But,
of course, I mean, scale, quantity, volume, but when you own 25, 30 distilleries as well, that's quite helpful too. But no, of course, but I don't know. There was just, like, as I say, like, we have so much respect for these guys and they do a phenomenal job. But when we're blending and things in small batches, I never, if you're only blending sort of 10, 15 casks, I don't want us to ever shy away from using an outstanding cask because we're afraid that we can't recreate that absolute flavour profile on the next batch. So we always want to create the best version of the whiskey we can at that time.
Somebody else we were speaking to, I'd said that, and that was, I think it was maybe Peter Allison from Woven, said something very similar. They want to make the best version of that whiskey that they can. I thought it was quite a prevalent kind of idea. And I was going to ask, if you get some of these casks and you think, is there any time you think, oh, should we just do a single cask with this one because this is banging?
So there's not really been there's, as I say, when we're blending and things, it's always to try and create something that we think is more interesting than any individual component. And sometimes there are definitely challenges on that. There's been the odd one, there's a 15-year-old Caolila PX that really stands out in mind. And I mean, even on one of the limited editions that we did recently, we were really focusing on distilleries that Gordon and I worked at previously, so we know the spirit really, really well. So there was Glenallachie, Benriach, Blether, and Anok, and they're really stunning distilleries. And I don't think it ever genuinely goes through our mind to do anything as single malt, single cask, but sometimes the challenge of trying to blend and make it something that we're really proud of that is more interesting than the individual component can feel a little intimidating, I guess.
Yeah, that's fair. Just going to scroll back to some. We had Mark Watt on earlier on. He's had to jump out to tasting, but he is tempted just to stick this on the telly and make them watch this instead of posting the station, which I think is a great idea.
It's very kind. That way he can have a half and half.
Yeah, exactly. All he needs to do is pour the drams. He couldn't agree with you more on the sherry cask, though. The idea that I think that's going back to that thin spirit over sherry, when the colour and the sherry kind of became the sellable factor over the whiskey itself.
For sure.
I'm going to go back because we've covered quite a lot of ground very quickly, and I don't want to jump in and interrupt you when you're in flow. We've got Reb is asking, he's on YouTube, about the name or the company idea, Turntable. Is it anything to do with the Glasgow-based hi-fi company Lynn?
I would love to explore something with them in the future, but no, not at this point. So there was kind of two reasons. Second, love for Gordon and I, but beyond the world of whiskey, it was also music. Sadly, neither of us has any musical talent at all, but I think we love the idea of exploring the connection between whiskey and music, that both can take a person to a different time, different memory, and that's unique to each of us. So I always get really interested to hear what different people would listen to when they're drinking our whiskies. And then the other side was our sort of main goal and ambition as a company is to try and change the perception that blended whiskies are inferior to single malt. So the idea was to turn the table, flip the record, do things a little differently. So, yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
No, the first time I'd heard of it was actually when my partner had bought this bottle.
Oh,
and
nice.
he was very excited about it because he'd been looking at it for ages, or he'd been wanting to find it for ages. And it was like he'd kicked open the front door one day, came home, and he was like, "Louise, I've got Turntable." And I wasn't I'd been out of whiskey for a while at this point, so I wasn't fully up to date on everything. I was like, "Are we DJs now? What do you mean you've got Turntable? What does that mean?" He was like, "I've just got it. I've got Turntable."
That is so cool. It makes me very happy to hear he was so excited about it. That's amazing. Yeah. No. Nice. No, it's been kind of fun, and it's just I guess as well as a different way of connecting with people, and we have this idea in a way that hopefully as we grow the company and the brand continues to grow, I like the thought of almost making a collaborative Spotify playlist where anybody drinking Turntable can add to it, and it can just become almost a community of what are we all listening to when we're having a dram.
Me and Mike were talking about funky tastings the other day, and trying to do a whiskey and music pairing came up. So
for sure, I mean we tried it sometimes, and as you say, it's just cool to look at doing something different. Just trying. bring a tasting, bring whiskey to life in a different way. And I think music, people connect in different ways with music as well. So it's always nice to explore.
And I love that there's ones that like you could play a certain song with a certain dram and you'll just know it feels wrong. Like even if you're not able to explain it, you'll just be like, these don't match. Like that's not right. The same way you'll get another week and like, this is perfect.
Yeah, no, it's so interesting. So interesting.
I remember having a great time on my own in the back garden. In the last, it was a few years ago. It was a lockdown, might have been during lockdown, and I'd sat out with a Kilcoman single cask port cask, and had the fire pit on. It was just myself, a cigar, and a Kilcoman, and I was just like, just need some good music to go with this, and Dream would be there. So I put a shout out onto the Malt Maniacs, and this is what I'm doing. What music would you put on? And see, the interaction with that was phenomenal. Like people saying, "Oh, this song and that song and this artist," and I was just on Spotify. Like, I was having a whale of a time listening to all this great music. But it wasn't just the music; it was the fact that people were interacting. You're talking to them and sharing ideas and stuff. And it was such a cool. I am. Yeah, the guys at home are probably bored of me preaching this, but whiskey and music is such a great connection, in that you're mood dependent, it's who you're with dependent, there's a reason for listening. Everything depends on the here and now between music and whiskey. What am I going to drink tonight? Well, what am I feeling like? Who am I with? What's the reason for drinking it? And it's the same with music. And there's just a mood thing. There's a connection, and as Louise says, if it's not in synergy, it can kind of put you off a little bit.
For sure.
When you get it right.
There's one for you guys. What you've got the Ben Nevis 10, did you say?
Yeah.
What track would you be listening to?
Oh, that's too difficult a question, actually.
I know I threw that out there, but I'd probably need time on it as well, to be fair. So.
I wouldn't go for like a song, I don't think. I feel like I'd go for, see, when I'm like reading a book, I'll put like a YouTube 6-hour-long fireplace on the TV.
Nice.
I feel like I'd go for that sort of like soundscape. So with like a Ben Nevis 10, I feel like I would go for like a sort of Lord of the Rings-esque, trapped in the middle of the forest. Not in danger, but not like...
Specific. That's very cool.
Yeah.
I've tried to pitch like Taylor Swift tastings to Mike, but he's not quite said yes yet.
No. I was thinking for the Ben Nevis, it's got to be, what's that song, Big in Japan? That would be my one.
Yeah. That's just for the pun. That's not for the experience.
Just for the irony. Yeah.
It's not there.
There can be any reason. Like so even the limited releases, we've named lots after different songs and things, and I would say the way we've gone for it has been totally different reasons. That can be the name relating to the flavor. It can be sort of personal relationship to the song kind of thing. It can be all kinds of different reasons. So.
Yeah. I like Reb is watching on YouTube. He's got the same opinion of me. He said going Japanese or turning Japanese, I think it is.
Turning Japanese, yeah.
Okay, we could open a whole new can of worms with the music vibe. We have done it before. I think it was was it Alan from Spade Distillery? We went down a tangent comparing whiskey to bands, and that went on for a lot longer than it should have done. But a tasting, I think you could do like what I like about your name as well is you've left yourself such a wide scope of cool names and synergy and kind of collaborations to go with the names of your kind of core range. Your big riff and your bittersweet symphony. It's just ties in so well.
For sure, and again that kind of engagement, as you say, like when we're doing tastings and things, the number of sort of requests to name the next track such and such is always quite good fun as well to hear what people are thinking for future tracks.
Future tracks. It's not even future releases, it's future tracks.
Yeah, there you go.
So how long are you going to have to be in the game before you can get a greatest hits album out?
Oh, I haven't considered that one. We've got a while to go on that one, I think. We'll keep some archive stocks set aside for a greatest hits album in years to come.
Absolutely. Just talking on the blending, we're going to go back to the blending art a little bit. Willis asked a wee while ago, he's on Facebook. I guess you blend after cask maturation, but would you blend younger spirit and then finish, or mature in port and sherry, or
typically? Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think I understand what he's meaning. Typically, we would blend after finishing. So there's on every release so far, it would have been after finishing, but then we would also have a marrying period of about 3 months or so. So once we've sort of settled what the final blend breakdown is going to be, we would vat together, we would reduce the strength to slightly above bottling strength, and then marry for 3 months or so to obviously allow those whiskies to marry, allow the water to integrate, and then do a very small final reduction before bottling. But on a different side of that question, we have looked at some different wine cask finishes where we have already blended and are finishing in wine casks, and those have been in cask now for about 8 months or so. And they're coming along really nicely, but we will probably look at them again towards the end of the year, and it might be something we consider next year, but that will be a new sort of project for us. We hadn't done any of that until now.
Nice. Yeah. I thought this popped into my head as you're explaining that. If you were to have a greatest release, you're a DJ on the stage or a blender in a lab, and you had to have a top 10 playlist, what whiskies, not as in what's your favorite 10 whiskies, but what would you pick to go into your best ever blend? If money was no object, what would you look for? What kind of whiskies would you pick?
I don't know if I'll be able to go through the 10 off the top of my head right now.
We'll say 5.
Yeah, I'd say. I've
got nothing else on tonight. Take your time.
No. Clynelish would be right high up the list. I love that, the nature of Clynelish whiskey and that just slightly waxy style, and I think it's a really beautiful style of whiskey. Mortlach as well, something like that really heavy style in there as well from a blending point of view would be really exciting. I mean, obviously tapping into at least one of the Islay distilleries that you don't typically get to work with. I mean, obviously Caolila and stuff, which is more accessible from a stock point of view. I think the quality is excellent. I really do, but it would be cool to work with the likes of Ardbeg or Bowmore or something as well. But I think we've not got any Ardbeg or Lafroig stock in our inventory just now. I think we do have a little Bowmore that we might be able to do something with in the future. I suppose even slightly nostalgic wise, Glendronach would be pretty cool as well. I've never managed to get access to a cask of Glendronach, but that really heavy style from a blending point of view, just so meaty and would really sort of stand out in there. Then I don't know, maybe something looking coastal, either I don't know, Scapa would be pretty cool, I would think. So
okay.
What do we have there? Clynelish, Mortlach, Glendronach, Bowmore / Ardbeg, and Scapa.
Yeah, that's your 5.
Yeah. That was very much off the top of the head. I've never thought of that one before.
I mean, I'm pretty sure
of course, that's me not mentioning any grain whiskies.
Any grain, well. Yeah.
But I mean, I love the older grain whiskies. The truth is, I didn't throw them in there because we usually can access most of the older grain whiskies, and we have worked with most of the grain distilleries and things. So I didn't throw anything in there. But yeah, I mean, obviously, like some old Port and Das or something is always awesome to include.
Awesome. No, I just came in my head and I was like, greatest hits. No, not greatest hits, a greatest track.
What would you guys go for? Like, what would be some of your top ones that you wouldn't really see that you'd think, oh, that'd be cool to see in a blend?
I would say Glendronach would probably be my first pick. I think Ardmore. I love Ardmore, but I know it's kind of mainly made for blends anyway, so it's probably
still cool though. Yeah, absolutely.
It's such a cool. What else do I? Glencadam, but I feel Glencadam might get lost in a blend. I think it's quite.
Quality is great. It just depends on the blend, I guess. If you're going with Glendronach or something, it might get a little lost. But on a lighter style, it could be really cool.
Coming from kind of malt drinking and blend drinking rather than combining, I think I'm just picking out my favorite whiskies rather than saying what would I have in a blend. So Glenallachie, I think you're bang on with that oiliness, and you need. I guess when you're making a blend, you're looking for more than just flavor. You're looking at texture or what's going to stand out.
Yeah.
So I don't know, probably something that's quite quite young and youthful. Maybe like a Daft Mill, maybe something that's
that's cool,
kind of creamy and sweet, and it'll give you that kind of real heavy barley kind of flavor in there.
For sure.
I'm not sure. I mean, try to get enough cast of that to put into the blend, and if they ever found out, you'd probably be hung for the blend.
Daft Mill, there's one. I mean, the whiskey we always grew up with in the house that would always be sort of a firm favourite for Gordon and I is the Old Pulteney as well. So I always love Old Pulteney.
Being Denver.
With our dad working there, the one in the house was always Old Pulteney, 12 years old. So that's the real nostalgic one as well.
Louise, how about yourself? We've got to say Ben Nevis. You'd have Ben Nevis.
Well, no, because I feel like I've just had like a 3-minute conversation with myself in my head about whether or not I would blend Ben Nevis. I genuinely don't know. It's like the curse of the philosopher. You've asked me one question and I've immediately thought of like 5 others about the same question. Yep. I feel like Ben Nevis would go like this, like the actual Ben Nevis 10, this one. I feel like you could blend that with something. I'm not sure what.
I think Ben Nevis would blend well. You're still that kind of. It would shine. Like you could build around it for sure.
Yeah. And then I don't know if we're asking about like ideal blends, are we talking about like my top, like my favorite drams that I would love to see mixed together?
Exactly. I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure the way we've done this. If it is just sort of favorites that. Yeah, would love to see, or if it makes a good blend or not. So,
I was actually wondering, is there I don't know if it's the same question. Is there like a top 3 cask type that you would love to try to blend together to see if it worked?
I haven't really thought about it. No, I mean, easy answer, I suppose, is no, and that it doesn't come to me straight away. But I suppose there's so many interesting cast types.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of an add-on. Yeah. An add-on to that. When you're looking for spirit, Louise is saying you're looking for cask type. What's more important for a blender? Is it the cask type? Is it the spirit? Or are you really looking for that interaction between the two?
Definitely the interaction between the two, but both are really important. So we started acquiring casks and stock in 2019, and we didn't bottle or release Turntable until 2023, and that was we did say to each other right at the beginning that the earliest we'll release the brand is 2023 because we want that time getting re-racks in place, putting our own stamp on the wood management and developing to a certain point. But I guess my point is the stock management, the long-term stock management is just so important to everything we do and really thinking long-term ahead. So today we own about 1,100 casks or so, and that piece of the work that is always going on is discussions around what areas are we short in, what are we looking for. Is it sometimes it is variety of malt distilleries in there for future limited releases and things. Sometimes it is longer term acquisitions for consistency in the core range. But like, we could be purchasing anything from new make spirit through until 40 years old is the oldest that we currently have. And obviously then the wood management becomes really important as well. But I would say in our range just now, the likes of the core range, most of them are between 70 and 80% malt and 20 to 30% grain. I would say the malt whiskies being used are usually between 10 and 15 years old, and the grain whiskies are usually sort of 17 to 30 years old. So we're never using grain whiskey just to stretch out the volume, only to try and add something to the overall flavor. But we're always thinking when it is the long term. Of course, we can't just be buying new make spirit right now, because the whiskey we're releasing is 13 years old, 14 years old, 20 years old. So but with each year that passes, I think Gordon and I quite like the thought of us trying to acquire younger spirit, always like moving in the direction towards new fillings where we have full control over the wood management. And it's what we would like to do, but obviously that takes time, and there will always be a bit of both.
What you've just thrown at me there is, not only do you need to have a great nose and a great palate to be a blender, but you need a fucking good memory as well. You've got 1,100 casks in there. You need to know what every one of them is doing.
Some good spreadsheet organization. It's funny, Gordon and I, like, we're similar in so many ways, but then we're different in certain ways as well. But we've kind of split tasks that I would do more of the actual blending and the commercial, the sales and marketing and things, but Gordon would do a lot of the operational. So in terms of sourcing casks from different distilleries, sourcing the wood, organizing the re-rags, the dry goods, the bottlings. But we talk about everything, and there's a lot of overlap in what we do, but that's kind of the split. But it's always been quite interesting seeing how each other works, because I would say I'm quite fast and sort of, let's get things done, let's make decisions, let's drive forward, whereas Gordon's a little more measured than me, and really considered, and everything is not cautious, but quite, as I say, considered. But we sometimes joke with each other that I'm quite good for speeding him up, and he's quite good for slowing me down. So I think balances each other out a little there.
I mean, you said 1,100 casks in a spreadsheet. Like, my heart skipped a beat. I got excited. That would be a nice spreadsheet.
That's all, Gordon. That's all, Gordon. I think you need the two halves, don't you? You need the organizer and somebody just to say, "Well, hold on, this is," and then you need the other one who is like that proactive. This tastes great. I'm going to buy it.
Oh, exactly. I mean, the truth is, I think we definitely wouldn't have started when we did if I wasn't really trying to push things along and drag him along a little. But as you say, like, the more considered approach, the more sort of long-term stock planning and things, it's so important. So I think we're quite good for each other on that.
Yeah. You need that balance, don't you? And it does, if you're to go alone with your clear passion and drive, that alone is not enough. And then if Gordon went on his own with the organizational skills, it's probably not enough. But when you put the two together, you've got that synergy, and that's what really works really well. We're getting some loads of great comments coming in. I apologize to you guys at home if you've asked a question. We haven't come around to it yet. Good evening to Callum, who's just he's still recovering from the Camden Festival. He's still sobering up, so I did have a quick reply to him. If you're sober, you haven't done it right. So let's speak to you again when you are. but he's got a great question in as well. It kind of it touches on what you're talking about bringing in younger spirit and working with that. Because the new Witchburn distillery that's coming up in Campbelltown, their plan is to provide large quantities of Campbelltown malt. He's quoting here 2 million litres per annum.
Yeah.
But principally for blenders.
Yeah.
That's the first time I've kind of seen that as a distillery producing malt for a new distillery, because normally the par for the course is we're a new distillery and we're not selling to blenders. We're keeping everything for ourselves, and that's what's going to be. So, what's your thoughts on that as a new distillery providing malt for blenders?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting model. I mean, the truth is, producing 2 million litres of alcohol a year, I think is definitely sensible to consider doing some new fillings and things. So no, it makes sense, and I actually think particularly where they are and what they're looking to do is quite a good idea and clever as well, because Campbelltown is obviously difficult to get, and from a blending point of view, to include Campbelltown and things is very nice, but there is a shortage on that side, whereas the rest of the industry, there's often a surplus at the moment. So it's a really interesting one. I was just looking at the different styles of distillery in a way, because you think anything really built before 2000 is probably more that kind of model, and that there usually would have been a thought towards blending and fillings and some trade in there, whereas it's just in the last sort of 15, 20 years or so, the distilleries are being built with thought of full focus single malt strategy, and without really considering that aspect.
The first one was probably I'm sure somebody at home will correct me in this, but Arthrusk in Speyside was the last distillery that was built for blending purpose, for producing malt for blending, and then there was nothing built until Arran. I think 95 would have been the first.
Yeah,
but I think that was the first single malt, unless it has put to blending, and then otherwise it'd be Kilchoman,
which would be what, 2005 maybe.
Yeah, 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And I know they were very much purely for single malt. I'm not sure if Arran and the offset.
Which I think, I mean, again, is interesting for both, because like phenomenal brands, phenomenal whiskey, and they've done fantastically well. But I think both of them had a bit of a rocky journey in the early years of, are we going to make it? Are we not going to make it? And I mean, there's no looking back now. They've done phenomenally well. But I think always that starting a new distillery is usually more expensive than what is predicted. Like, it's usually more of a burden than you expect. But they've got so much respect for these guys coming through it, and what they've built is just so great.
It's insane. I mean, you guys are telling us here that you started buying casks in 2019.
Yeah.
You've now got 1,100 on site. That's not including the ones you've emptied and sold, which is phenomenal. But you look at the cost of not only building a distillery but running it for that minimum 3 years. You're probably talking thousands a week just to.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think the costs today are really high, and there's different challenges today. Like, it's amazing how resourceful Scots are in particular, I guess, because you think the premium gin movement, how successful that was, and I know it's really turned down now and things, but how successful that was in sort of managing the cash flow and overheads for new distilleries that were really at the beginning focused on whiskey, but could adapt their strategy, and all the inaugural releases, the sort of cask sales, like starting communities and selling casks in advance and things. Like, it's all clever ways to try and keep the cash flow driving. But
what's your thoughts on the current market for whiskey in terms of talking that cash flow, that investment policy? And there's still a few guys out there trying to start up and what is considered a downturn. I don't believe downturn's the right word. I think more of a reset after COVID.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on that. I think like the COVID really sort of threw things all over the place a little. But if you look at it from 2018 until 2025 without the crazy spikes, it's probably actually quite healthy growth. But there's no doubt there's challenges just now. Like I still think there's great opportunity in the whiskey category, and there's loads to go after. But around the world, people are spending quite cautiously, and there's a nervousness, and it's I think probably during the pandemic and things, production and expectation within certain segments of the industry got a little out of control, and probably pricing at times got a little out of control as well. So actually bringing that all back in line sometimes I think is not the worst thing in the world. It's probably healthy for the industry to reset that a little. But I think definitely challenges. But if you look back at the history of the Scotch whisky industry, like it's always been cyclical to some degree, and I still think there's fantastic opportunity. Like I'm not too worried about it all. How are you guys? What about you guys? What's your kind of feeling on it? You see it very close up as well.
Yeah, Louise, do you want
to? Mike, you first.
Yeah, and I've kind of spoken about this before on the Blether, but you hit the nail. For me, you look at 19, you look at now, and we are still way above what we were. So I think a large part of that is down to the cask investment side of things. A lot of people were buying casks, and as new distillers, they were producing. Let's just use Harris as the example because they were the ones most recently in the news saying that they're cutting back.
Yeah,
they had to produce more than what was viable because people were buying private casks, and they also had to have their production for what was going to become a core range and whatever releases they've got over the next 10 years. So they were trying to cater for two different markets. The private cask market is the one that's really stopped. So they're now only producing for one market, which is their own core range. So of course, production is going to slow down. It's going to stop. It's not slowing down because they're not selling enough whiskey. It's slowing down because that private cask investment is stopped. But in the grand scheme of things, people look at figures. They look at numbers. We've sold X, or we're making less. For me, that's
exactly. I guess the question on that is always like, and I mean not specifically to Harris, just to anybody. Is like
no, just example because they're
but as long as the ownership has the power to write it out, if you know what I mean, like the long-term nature of it.
You make hay when the sun shines, don't you? They had to make as much spirit as they could when the going was there. Sell those casks, and now those casks are sitting in warehouses. Harris have got the money for it. The guys are happy because they own a cask, and you don't want to say that that's tomorrow's problem, but that is something now that they've got that they can sit on, and it might come to the point where like, well, we really need to slow down, but we've got all these casks. I can buy that back or offer to buy that back from a customer,
which might be the preferred route for the customer in the future as well. So
exactly. And then something probably more closer to home for you is the Glenglassaugh that kind of hit the news because of a staff member's tweet.
I'm not quite sure if this one's been a little blown out of proportion though. Like
100% that's been blown out. I mean, these kind of things happen every day.
Turning down production at a distillery and sharing a production team with Ben Riach and things, that's not like it's not huge industry news necessarily, but as I say, I think that one was a little blown out of proportion.
Yeah, especially when they've just launched a brand new core range, a new brand, beautiful bottles, great spirit, everything's good, and then one tweet from and I know the guy just everyone can up in arms saying, "Oh my God, there's a crash coming!" Is it? But this is just normal.
It's so easy to catastrophize, though. Like, like when that, I vividly remember that tweet coming out, vividly, because I absolutely adore Glenglassaugh, but it came out when I hadn't done whiskey work for a while, so I'd sort of been out of everything, so I wasn't up to speed on everything, so I'd sort of forgotten some stuff. And I remember thinking that it was the end of Glenglassaugh, because that was just what it was made to sound like. That's what everybody, all the comments sort of made it seem like it was all over.
There's I so want that distillery to do well, which I think it will, just because I think the quality of the spirit is so great, and in fairness to Brown Foreman as well, I think the job that they've done on the rebrand of that and things is just phenomenal. It's great, and we always when I was still there, it was really early days of Glenglassaugh, but there was this huge challenge in that you had the distillery was closed from 86 until 2000. I can't remember. 2008 was it? Something like that.
It was early 2000s. I remember it was. It was just before Benriach bought it. Or no, it was. Was it?
Yeah. So no, you're probably right. So they bought it in 2013. So it was probably about 2008 or so it had been reopened. But you had this challenge in that there was actually quite a lot of stock pre-1986, 30-year-old, 40-year-old stock that was phenomenally good, or you had sort of 3, 4, 5-year-old stock. But trying to get somebody to step from 4-year-old to 30-year-old or 40-year-old is quite challenging. So
it was brilliant. I remember taking tours up there when the visitor centre was just kind of the wee porter cabin, which I loved. I loved that. And you went in, and it was your kind of revival, and you had the evolution and
Torfa. Yeah, that's it.
But they always used to have a banging handful as well. It was like in a wine cask or something like that.
Yeah.
Phenomenal value for money, 50 CL. And then you had this thousands of pound bottle. You're £50 to 5,000. It's just where's the in between?
But it was difficult to even know how to price the old stuff, because I remember the 30-year-old for a while was selling at £300 or so, which again is not an easy sell if nobody has seen the brand or tasted the brand before. But £300 for that quality of 30-year-old was phenomenally good. It was really great value. But I think the brand's even more exciting now though, because you have a 12-year-old in the range, and you can see that kind of range beginning to develop, and what the future can hold for it. I think it'll be really good.
Yeah. Reb is just asking, he's on YouTube, he's saying he missed the story. So Reb, just to briefly update you, there was Glenglassaugh kind of had new staff, production staff, and a couple of them got laid off. And the idea was that they were going to merge the production team between Benriach and Glenglassaugh, slow down Glenglassaugh production until the end of the year, I think is what it was. Yeah. And one of the staff who was laid off sent out a message on so I don't think it was Twitter, I think it was Instagram actually. Sent a message and social media got a hold of it. News outlets got a hold of it, and there was a great big story about, the death of Glenglassaugh. Bearing in mind, Glenglassaugh has been closed more often than it's been open in its history anyway. It's
for sure. And again, I definitely don't want to diminish somebody being laid off or something, because that's a really hard day to take and stuff, and not good at all. But I don't think the catastrophe of the future of the brand and the distillery was quite relatable to what it was.
I do think it was a tweet of passion, or a post of passion, where he was annoyed and angry and probably wanted to vent. So,
understandable.
Yeah, 100%. So let's not downplay that. Somebody losing their job. Willis has got a great comment here on Facebook. So Willis was with us in the Highland Whiskey Academy, and part of that week that we do, we go to Glenglassaugh and we get some pretty cool job. Willis, remind me, I can't remember if you were in with when it was Stuart Buchanan who took us round, and we got some of the old manager drams. And Willis's quote of the day was, "This is the best fucking whiskey. I don't want to drink any other whiskey ever again." I think that was it the was it the rum cask, the 30-year-old rum cask, 34-year-old rum cask? I think it was. He mentioned that one, or it was one of the managers. I can't remember which whiskey it was, but yes,
it's such a great spirit. That kind of coastal nature as well. It's a great spirit. Yeah. And doing a tour with Stuart's always good as well. He'll look after everybody very well, I'm sure.
He's phenomenal. I remember at the time we were walking around, and he was talking about the manager's house, and he was in. If I owned the distillery, this is what I would do with that, and this building here, this is going to be mine, and this is what we'll do our tastings, and every building he in his head. I think if Stuart could buy a distillery, he would have Glenglassaugh and have his wicked way with it, which I think would be like so much fun.
When I first joined Benriach, the first time I went up there was with Stuart, and we had a warehouse tour, and that was honestly, it's like a kid in a sweet shop. Just the passion and excitement and wanting to open and share everything, share the experience of every cask. Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, and he's still like that today. He's still. I went up with a tour to Glendronach. Stuart just happened to be there. He was working on the archives because it's their 200th anniversary next year, 2026, I think it's.
Yeah, I'd forgotten that. That'd be right, 1826. Yeah.
So he's doing some work in the archives. He's seen our bus turn up, and he came over and said hello. And when he'd seen each other for a wee while, and he's like, "Do you want to come and have a look in the archives?" And I was like, "Fuck yeah!" Guys, you go enjoy your tour. I'm gonna just look at some old pictures. It's boring. You won't like it. We'll go up there and just stuff everywhere, like old purchase orders for pheasants and like the old diagrams of the 60s revamp, but then diagrams going back to the 1800s and stuff, and it's just like, oh my god, this is amazing stuff.
There was so much cool history around Glendronach Distillery as well, and the guy James Allardyce and things. There was loads of great stories and great history around it. So I'd love to see all that.
I'm not sure. I've just bottle cooled. We're talking to Stuart Buchanan. This is a bottle we had a tasting with him. It was during lockdown. This is my second bottle. 13-year-old PX cask. So you would have been involved maybe in this one.
2005, 13 years old.
It's a Pedro Jimenez.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Would have been just after I left, but again, Benriach, I always thought I don't know if you guys think the same, but I just think it's so versatile. Like it can work in so many different styles of wood. So and I don't know. Usually with distilleries, if they're unpeated, I kind of prefer that they stick to the signature unpeated style. But Benriach, I always thought the peated was quality as well. I always thought it was
really the sweet peat.
Yeah.
This is like drinking sticky toffee pudding.
Nice one.
So good. It's like proper PX, and it's now left me in a quandary of what to go to next because it's so sweet. Everything else is going to taste like super tart or dry.
Onto the peat.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway, Louise, you're back. How are you?
I am back. Yes. That laptop's had a workout today, so it's been a bit funky. But it's gone from like whiskey to philosophy back to whiskey again, so I don't think it's coping with the jump. But
have you guys got much coming up in the shop? Have you got like some cool tastings lined up and things, or what's going on?
Shit, yeah. We've never had a guest ask us that before, have we?
There's so much stuff happening. It's so exciting.
Oh, nice.
Louise is so excited because we were in yesterday, and one of the tasks I gave her and Charlie, who's our other new start, was to come up with ideas. And as newcomers, because sometimes when you work in the same company all the time, you kind of get used to what you're doing. You just try to do different variants of what you're doing. So the task Louise and Charlie had was just come up with some random stuff and see from outsiders' point of view what do you think would work. So I've got a list of events now that we're going to try and flesh out. The Taylor Swift one's not going to happen. I'm sorry. It's just not going to go.
When she tours again, you're going to have to do a Taylor Swift themed.
What else? What else is on the list, Louise? What else is on there?
Oh, loads of stuff. There was a lot of stuff that, like, as expected, there was a lot of stuff that, like, everyone who's ever thought of, like, oh, what would a weird whiskey tasting be like? We had a lot of, like, those sort of normie ideas. There were some things that could be... I don't know how much I'm allowed to say. And Mike is also here, so I'm... yeah. Some's definitely not happening.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some could be happening. There's one that he's not officially signed off on yet, but I am assuming it's going to happen, so I am writing plans for it to happen.
Is this the book one?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to do a book club whiskey tasting, or a book club whiskey tasting, I guess is
largely because.
Awesome. So how does it work? Are you going to do it as just a one-off and assign the book in advance, or how does it work?
Well, that's the fleshing out part. So effectively, the idea is, and I've just got this because this is one of the ones mentioned.
Nice,
we say this is a book we're going to talk about. So Louise or I or Charlie or whoever's doing it will look through the book, read the book, and say, here's some interesting points. What dram will fit that point? And then when they come into the room, we kind of pick up the book and we say, this is great because it's like 20 pages long and it's so easy. But it is the philosophy of whiskey, which is it's fun as well. It's like Billy's just a legend, really. So yeah, and that's the idea, is to kind of pick a book, get people in the room with maybe a caveat that they can buy the book in advance. So say we launch a whiskey a tasting today that is going to happen in August. You can buy a ticket, or you can buy a ticket with the book. We send you the book straight away, and you read the book in time for the tasting, maybe. But that's dedication. So,
it sounds really cool. Something different. Yeah, I've not seen before. It sounds a lot of fun.
So to the guys at home,
like a tasting through the book, and then people can go away and read the book after. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No, I'm saying to the guys at home, they need to.
Oh, right. Oh, sorry. I was thinking I was like spilling industry secrets.
Yeah. I do believe that I don't think we could ever, as much as I love the book, I don't think we could do a whiskey tasting with this book, because basically we just a marathon. We just have to read every frigging book whiskey that's launched. So
I'd love to do like an annual roundup though. Like, can you imagine like drams that have come out in 2025? Here's your like 6 biggest cultural impact drams. But then how do you know that until?
I feel like
that would be a very quick turnaround.
It's cool doing one that's kind of quirky, unknown stories and things as well, rather than 100% factual and things. So it's cool doing both.
I guess the kind of big news would be that we are opening a whiskey bar.
Wow. I haven't heard that. That's awesome. And in Inverurie as well.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So, yeah, we're going to be moving within the next month, really. We've kind of teetered around telling people. Some of the locals know, but there's a venue that we've got access to, so we're going to open a bar with a bigger tasting room, and eventually the shop will be tied in alongside it. So,
oh man, congratulations, guys! That's so exciting.
It's so that's quite cool, and we should be open in the next couple of weeks.
Wow!
So we'll do a Blether from there, to showcase that. I'd definitely get you in to do a tasting. We've got turntables for the bar as well. So yeah, I kind of a lot of focus on that at the moment, which is it's weird. I mean, my background is bars before I opened the shop, so I'm going to kind of go full circle. I don't know if I'm too old to work behind a bar now. I like giving people drink that they can go home and get drunk on. I don't know about getting drunk in the here and now. It's still part of my ability to cope with.
I still feel like the opportunity to have both together is great though as well. Like give people the opportunity to really taste in a nice environment and things, and then there's the shop as well and all the events, opportunities, tastings. Obviously, you guys have done a lot of that in the upstairs and things as well where you currently are. But this sounds great, really cool.
Yeah, I think we've just outgrown where we are.
Yeah,
and the only way to expand that and let's be honest, we've touched on it before. Retail and the purchasing of whiskey, people are holding back. They're kind of slowing down a little bit. But what we're looking for, and you look at festivals, they're still so well attended. People want the experience. People want that, the joy of drinking whiskey without maybe buying a bottle and stuff. So those are the side of things for us as a business that are doing really well. So that's what we want to focus on and say, look,
nice.
Let's have an occasion where we can focus on the event, on the experience of drinking whiskey, in a safe environment where people can sit down, and it's not just whiskey. There's going to be like wine and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, it's not a place to come and get pissed at. It's not a place to come and just get booze. We're not doing big bands. We're not doing TVs or jukeboxes or any of that. It's going to be a safe space. People can come in, sit, really enjoy their whiskey or their wine, talk about it. Quality over quantity kind of idea.
It feels very like if you want to come and try good stuff.
It's a nice place. A nice place to go for a good drink. Yeah, it's, nice.
Whether that's like wine, rum, whiskey, vodka, whatever.
Yeah,
this is where you're going to go for like the.
When I was asking what you guys have going on, I wasn't expecting quite as much as this. It's awesome.
Yeah, bombshell. We're just like yeah.
I mean, other than this, I'm in till I'm in at 10 tomorrow, so like the shop will be open.
Oh yeah.
But also we got like a whole bar opening. Like it's
nice.
Very.
Amazing! Really, really cool stuff.
It's a very cool time to be in and around Inverurie Whiskey Shop.
Yeah,
I feel like I've joined at a very nice time when like it's everyone knows like Inverurie Whiskey Shop.
How long did you say you're in, Louise?
I've only been here about 6 weeks.
Nice. Yeah. Loads going on. Yeah. Well, you said you were working in whiskey previously and then not for a while and then kind of coming back in, or was it just enthusiasm about whiskey before, or?
So I started working in whiskey largely because I wanted to work in tourism. So I was taking a lot of like tour guiding jobs before, and then I just sort of fell in love with it, and then it became this thing that like anywhere I went in the country, there was whiskey nearby, or there was like a whiskey bar or a whiskey shop or a whiskey distillery or something, so I could sort of apply for jobs around there. So that always worked out quite well. Yeah, but I'm back. I took a little bit of a break. Yeah, I've not worked in whiskey for about 3 years, 2.5, 3 years. And then Inverurie Whiskey Shop were hiring, and I couldn't not apply.
Nice. No, it sounds a great time to be joining as well. So
yeah,
it's great.
Right.
So, yeah, we're going to kind of lead on Louise's previous bar experience as well, and she froths a mean milk for her coffee machine.
She really does. Yeah.
That's important.
If you like your coffee and you like your name, I'll write your name in your coffee.
Nail it. Yeah. Very cool.
So yeah, you heard it here first, I guess. Michael is Michael Lord. Great to see you on. He said, "I believe drink responsibly is the phrase you're looking for." Absolutely, that sums it up. It is a place to come and enjoy. And like I said, we just kind of outgrew the tasting room, and it was pretty restricted to what people were wanting and to what we can offer. So yeah. It's going to be fun. We're a wee bit off yet. There's still a bit of decorating to go, but feel free to pop over and get.
Oh, definitely! I love that this was the official announcement as well. That's great.
I feel bad.
We got the current team lined up yet. So.
Sorry, Louise.
I said he's not quite got the current team members shrine up yet, so it's not ready to welcome people in. Yeah. But
just an FYI, guys, me and Louise were discussing. It's a nod to cat. Tomorrow is International Hug a Cat Day, so please get yourselves over to Glengarry. She's working there tomorrow, and just give her a hug. I don't think words are needed. Just hug her, and I think she would love that.
It is Hug Cat Day, so
it's Hug a Cat Day.
Yeah.
But
is that why she's not here tonight? So she doesn't have to promote it or be near it. Or...
She's getting old. She's got a birthday soon, and somebody bought her a present that was a theatre gift tonight. So
nice.
Yeah. So Ed is just asking YouTube, are we keeping the tasting room bar above the shop? Yes, for now, but that will move over to the new site as well. So the shop will move over and have its own smaller kind of tasting room as part of the shop. But for when guys like Ali come over and do a tasting and we sell out, we need a bigger space. So that's the idea behind that. Dave Vaxon, Mike, have you thought about a whiskey tasting club once a month, but not brand specific? We have a members club coming as well, so keep your eye out for that. It's kind of
there's a book club.
There's a book club, yeah. There's. I mean, when I started thinking about this, I had hair. Now it's all gone, and yeah, I feel like this could be Schrodinger's cat instead of the cat. Well, I've got it. I'm both bald and not bald, so I keep the hat on. That's why I keep the hat on.
There's a beer in this cabinet called I think it's just Schrodinger's beer, which my friend got me for my 18th, and I was always going to drink it, but now it's out of date, and I've never opened it.
Yeah. So
now I can't ever open it.
So is it still out of date if it's unopened?
I don't know. Is it still a good beer if it's not been opened? Who knows?
Full philosophy now.
Yeah. So yeah, this is Louise's philosophical side coming out, which is a scary place to be. Ali, what's next for you? What's the future hold for Turntable? Are you just going to continue churning out banging whiskies, or have you got?
Yeah. I think the way the market is just now, things we almost tried to decide at the beginning of this year to really focus on the core range and really just grow the brand awareness. So things like the Unplugged release this month was quite a big play for us, just to try and have that more accessible entry level and get more people into the brand. And we'll just feel with the limited releases, there's only so much shelf space these days, and I think flooding retailers with new release after new release, it can get a bit tiring for everybody. So when we're doing it, we want to make sure that we've depleted previous limited releases and are more replacing with something new and interesting, rather than always asking to add new space. So we're planning the one limited release in I would say September is looking realistic. So it's an exciting one for us. It's we've not really spoken about it too much yet, but the idea is to work with some of what we would see as the sort of best new kids on the block, the slightly younger distilleries who are doing some really interesting things, and try and create some synergy between those brands and ourselves. And I think there's each has their own identity, but there's some overlap in philosophy and things between all of us. So just work on something really cool on that side. So excited for that one. And then in terms of sort of markets and things, I think we're in 15 markets now. We're not particularly looking to enter new markets this year. It's more really trying to support our partners and distributors and make sure we get out there and do tastings, festivals, sales team training, really work on the brand awareness and things. So I guess kind of continuing the work that we've been doing, and slightly longer term, I mean, I'd love us to have a sort of blending music experience to be able to host that and things, but I think that's a slightly further down the line plan.
I just had a cool thought where we get a DJ in to the new room, because it's kind of got that it's almost two-tier. You could be doing your thing, and we could get a DJ in on the turntable. We could do some
turntable day.
Yeah,
perfect.
Music and whiskey.
A 2-level turntable.
Actually, we did one when I was out in Korea last year. They organised with a DJ out in Seoul and did a music and whiskey event, and it was really cool. So he was playing music. I would sort of introduce the whiskies, but he would introduce the songs. He was really music knowledgeable as well, and we'd sort of talk about why we try and relate them together and things. And it's it was a fun event for sure.
Mm-hmm. Where, is that the furthest you've been with Turntable, or have you?
Yeah, Seoul, and I think I'm planning to go out to Japan at the end of June. I was out there last year as well, and then going the kind of other direction, going sort of Western Canada, Vancouver and Alberta and things out that direction. So, I mean, most of say we're in 15 markets now. Most of it, I would say, is Europe focused, and then obviously the ones that I mentioned, Western Canada, we did quite well, and in Asia, we're in Hong Kong, Japan, Korea, Taiwan. So we're not in the US or China, and I think we'll probably keep it that way just now, just whilst it's still only Gordon and myself. And I think there's a lot of challenges in these markets at the moment, and like when we do enter them, we want to really be able to support them and have the resource there to do it properly. And I think we're just not quite there yet. So maybe a 2026 one, but not 2025.
Cool. I just love the travel that you guys get in all these countries. You get to go and visit and for work, and it's see what's going on.
How do you get to do that?
Sorry,
Mike. When did I get to travel for work?
You travel for work every day. Every day you come in, you travel
from Aberdeen side to Inverurie.
Exotic.
Yeah. We've got a few trips in the pipeline. We're going to go. So it's our 10th anniversary this year as well. So we've got a few trips for the staff to go and we'll have a look at some casks kicking around that we can acquire. Maybe a turntable blend or something like that could be.
Keep in mind. I was trying to think of ways that we might be able to do the odd sort of small batch, or if there is a cask that we've already blended that's like a long finish or something that is like a single cask blended whiskey, if you know what I mean, but a different take on it. There could be something cool we could do. Yeah.
Sure. There was somebody who asked if you would ever do a fully blended malt. Rev Mordecai was asking, has Ali ever thought about doing a blended malt?
I think we're both definitely open to it. part of the feeling of what we do is just trying to remove as much restriction as possible. So trying to keep all possibilities open. So sometimes if I think about, obviously single cask is heavily restricted, single malt restricted in some ways, or regional malt, blended malt, whereas by being blended whiskey, we just think it gives us so much scope in what we can do and what different flavors we can play with. But if we feel like the best version of a whiskey we can make is a blended malt and the grain isn't contributing, then we would do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Dutch Jura is asking for a Blether blend.
That'd be so fun. Blend.
Yeah.
Was it how do we organise that? Everybody contributes a favourite distillery.
Well, everyone just sends up their favourite bottle to us at the shop. We'll pass it on to you and you blend it together. Yeah. So sounds like a no-lose situation.
There's a whiskey club that I was talking to not that long ago about infinity bottles, and I honestly thought it was so interesting to hear like the different methods behind them. Obviously, for some people, it was just like as you approach a bottle kill, you throw some into the infinity bottle, and it keeps it going in some way. But there was some in the room that were real spreadsheet geeky and getting it to the perfect point and then separating that bottle away and continuing to experiment further and continue blending. But there was another that was sort of saying like it's just a kind of life event bottle for them. It's like day of proposal, day of graduation, wedding day, child born and stuff. And I was like, that's kind of cool because that's just like a truly personal bottle to you, life events and stuff. So I liked hearing what approach different people would take to that.
What if
Can we do an infinity bottle at the new bar?
Yes. I've got 4 infinity bottles behind the current bar.
I know, but can we do another one for the new bar? We've tried to do one at home, but we got too excited about the idea of blending. So I think we filled up like 60% of it in like a week because we were like, we'll just pour everything into and we'll just see what we've got.
I think to take an infinity bottle seriously, you have to. It needs to be a spread, or you have to have some form of idea of what's
tracking.
You need to know what's in it, surely.
Yeah. Like
which calls for a spreadsheet, and I don't.
When you get to a certain level, right, that goes in, but maybe that doesn't go in.
No.
How much of this do I need to drink to get to that?
Okay, so for the new bar, I'm going to write you a spreadsheet, and it's going to be full of calculations.
Okay. And that's what Ali was saying there. Is like you get people who treasure this wood so much that they'll kind of decant some of it and keep that, and then they'll start adding again. It's so cool how passionate and how geeky people get into infinity bottles. Yeah. And I would always be worried I would overdo it. You just.
I love how honest some of them were about how bad the whiskies ended up as well. So honest about it.
Yeah. You've got people who like if they open a bottle they don't like it, that goes into their infinity. It's just like so there's this blend of pish whiskey that they hope will magically transform into a great one. Yeah. And it will happen. It will happen at one point.
Nice one.
Do you do? I mean, your job is basically creating infinity bottles, isn't it? It's,
I've never really been one for massive.
I've really downplayed that.
I like the idea behind it all, but I've never really been one massively for infinity bottles. So as I said, I loved having that conversation, just to hearing what different people did.
Yeah. If I'm going to take us off on a tangent here, if you weren't making whiskey, what would you be doing?
Good question. I honestly don't know. I guess other passions that you'd want to be doing, probably something within the world of sport or music or something, but I don't really know exactly what that would look like? Yeah, it's a good question. I always think, when you really think about it, we are all quite lucky to be working in whiskey. It is a really sociable and amazing industry, and I try not to think about that one too much, and plan on working in whiskey for the long term, I think. Yeah.
Good.
I always find it quite fun how like whiskey ties into a lot of these things. Like, wasn't there like releases for certain like sports teams, and then there's like certain like music people will own like whiskey brands. Like, it sort of feeds into everybody's interests a wee bit.
Yeah, it's getting quite broad. I mean, even outside of whiskey, I suppose, just in terms of spirits, like that's almost a slightly different conversation. The celebrity endorsed spirits and things, and where how far that goes. And so I always think it's quite funny on that one, just like how it's perceived in different cultures. Because I was thinking in Scotland, like we're quite suspicious or is cynical in some ways. So like my immediate thought is if I see a celebrity endorsed spirit, it's probably not very good because it needed a celebrity to endorse it. When you compare that to like North America or the US and things, it's just polar opposite. So it's funny.
That was something we floated the other day as well. Was like a celebrity tasting, but like.
What was my reaction to that, Louise?
Huh?
What was my reaction to that?
I don't know if I can reenact your reaction on a live stream. I'm still only 6 weeks into this job. Like, I'm still very much on probation.
I mean, basically, my reaction was when celebrities start endorsing decent spirit, we'll do a tasting with it.
It was also all tequila.
I mean, there's so much tequila now. It's crazy. Yeah. Do you guys sell a lot of it?
No. We took in Sassenach. We had that purely in there. That was a business move because we knew it was going to sell.
Yeah, it was probably
And the Wolfie and Proper 12 and whatever else is out there at the moment. Jack and Victor. We brought in Jack and Victor because the customer wanted it. But and that was it. I don't. It's not really. I don't want to say we're snobbish about it. We just want to sell quality stuff, and we want people to enjoy what they're drinking, and you know, we'll buy that in at a price, and then the next day it's in every supermarket shelf for half of what we can offer it for. So it doesn't make sense for us to.
It goes back into that one doing both channels doesn't really work. The minute it's in all the supermarkets, that's where it belongs, really.
Yeah. So yeah, if somebody came to us and said we want to order a case of it, we'll buy it in for them. But that's a bit. Yeah. Rick has put in a great comment here. Rick, who's watching on YouTube, but the whiskey industry has created its own celebrities. Somebody like Billy Walker says this is an amazing whiskey, then we listen. Yeah, and we
no, 100%. It just makes me laugh in a way. It's definitely true, but Billy would never refer to himself as a celebrity in any way at all. So it just makes me laugh, the thought of him hearing that he's a celebrity. But, yeah.
You imagine him with the star shades and you know I don't know, the mink coat or stepping out of a limousine. That'd be brilliant.
It's funny, the guys we work with in Korea, we have the same distributor, so I knew the guys very well from the Glenallachie days, but they were telling me that Billy was out there doing a tour, was it last year, and they said there was full-time bodyguard hired for him and stuff. I thought that's amazing.
I love it. Yeah, you've worked with Billy, Stuart, you know, guys who we do, and the guys at home as well, kind of really look to as celebrities of the whiskey industry. You know, I don't think they're a dying breed in terms of these kind of proper old school kind of blenders, the Billies, the Jim McEwens, the Richard Pattersons, David Stewarts, and all these kind of guys. who do you see coming through that's really kind of making a stamp for themselves as a blender?
I mean, there will be guys, and it's a lot of the guys in the bigger companies who are coming through and shadowing and things who are hugely qualified, who'll do a fantastic job. But even within the independents just now, I think it's interesting as well. Like, I mean, saw the bottle you had there, Little Brown Dog and things, and I think the guys do an awesome job. Like, so yeah, so I mean, like, I don't know, across the independents, I think there is some really good quality, interesting stuff coming there, and I think we all speak to each other. We're all quite close and things as well. So it's yeah, it'll be an interesting time on that one. Honestly, I don't really know exactly what to expect from that, because you're right, with Billy, Jim, and Richard Patterson and things, there is a real core group in there, and I don't know exactly what the next law will look like, but I think there's plenty of very good quality stuff being blended and being produced right now. Yeah,
we had a chat, and let's go back a couple of years when Russell was our co-host, and it was kind of we tried to get in the room, and I think it's a phenomenal idea if somebody can make, maybe the guys at Water of Life, Greg Swartz or Keith Duncan, would be able to pitch it, would be to get Billy and Ronan in a room with maybe Robert Fleming and Ian Forteeth in a room with Rachel and Kelsey and David Stewart, and kind of the Jim McEwen and Adam, kind of just having a conversation around a table, the changing of the guard kind of thing. I think that would be such a phenomenal.
And seeing how the dynamic is and what.
Because the kind of that first generation are accidental celebrities. They didn't get into the job to do it. They did the job because they were very good at it, and that grew. They obviously love what they do, and that's why they're in the industry 50 odd whatever years. I feel the kind of consensus from a lot of people I see is the blenders coming up, although they're talented, and but they kind of have that little bit of cocksure kind of. They know how to play the system and stuff. I don't think that's serial. When you speak to somebody like Ronan, so down to earth, it's unbelievable.
Completely. I don't think there's any arrogance there at all. No,
I would like to think not, but I think they have to train. I guess a little bit like footballers or something of the, they never got that coercion, but nowadays they're all over Twitter and Instagram and everything kind of show off what they're doing. It's maybe perceived arrogance, but you meet them in person, it's absolutely not the case.
No, again, even culturally in Scotland and things, I don't think arrogance is allowed. I think that gets killed pretty quickly.
Just give me a book idea. I feel like we could interview so many people. On that.
No, definitely. No, it'll be a really interesting one. As I say, I love your idea of actually together though the current generation and the next generation, and just seeing what the dynamic is and ways of changing and things. I mean, I get really interested at a slightly larger scale as well around how the sort of technology and stuff comes in, and what how much sensory stuff continues versus how much is sort of more computer driven and things. And I'll be curious.
We need to keep that handcrafted skills in the go, though, don't we?
Yeah, definitely. I think just that, and there's probably a little both in there. Even Billy talks about it a lot. The sort of chemistry, alchemy side of things, and just the I think there possibly is a generation in terms of young blenders today who will become who are extremely qualified on the chemistry side of things, but I think what you really hope is the current generation nurtures the that traditional industry sensory side of things as well.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where whiskey is you need that craftsmanship, don't you? You need that the pat. It's not something you can regurgitate. It's not something you can just say, well, this is how we do it, so we're going to continue doing it that way. You need to be innovative as well as traditional.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's, I guess, what makes whiskey special as well. Like that, no two casts are the same, and it's you have to really understand that.
Interesting.
Nice, man. Guys, I think I am probably at the stage that I might need to drop off now. But I think it's been awesome chatting to you both, and so excited to come along and check out the new venue, the new bar, new shop.
We'll keep you up to date.
Yeah,
thank you so much for joining us, guys. It's been a pleasure to host you, Ali. It's always great to talk to you. It's been too long since we had you in the shop. We'll have to get you back in.
For sure.
Very, very soon. Louise, first co-host gig. Well done.
Thank you. I don't think I had as many nonsensical questions as Kat usually does, so that's my task for next time, is to up the nonsense a little bit more. So that's
nice.
Yeah. We'll make sure you have a few more beers before you join next time.
Nice.
So, guys, next week, as a Blether guest, we have David Stirk, I believe, is going to be joining us. So, hopefully, like Callum Renton, he's going to be sobered up after the Campbelltown Festival. And obviously, we'll be talking about his new book, The Whiskyopolis, as well as his several other books. And just a guy with a phenomenal history in whiskey. Surprisingly, we haven't mentioned him yet tonight, but if you want to join us and chatting to David Stirk next week, that would be absolutely fantastic. Michael Lloyd, oh God, is he straight in there? Absolutely. And you guys, if we don't have Kat back next week, which I'm pretty sure we will, rest assured Louise will be here in replacement.
She might also just be here anyway.
Anyway, yeah, she might.
If she's not here on screen, she'll be here in the comments. So,
Ali, it's been an absolute pleasure to chat to you. Thank you so much for your time and insight into not just turntable, but blending as a whole. I think it's been really, really interesting. The comments in the chat, and the guys have really kind of bought into it. So thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you.
Brilliant. No, thanks so much for having me on, guys. A real pleasure. And I look forward to catching up with you both soon.
Cheers. Slans.
Brilliant. Thanks,
Cheers, guys.
Bye-bye.
See you soon.